Great Thursday morning, April 15, 2021. To God be the glory for yet another opportunity to do His will. Let me ask you, are you one to still show love when situations are not favorable? Now we know that King Saul had a son, Jonathan, and how typically royalty is passed from one generation to another. The son would become king. But Jonathan didn't become king. He knew that David was appointed, but more so anointed to be king. So Jonathan, we got to take a page from his life. He wasn't salty. And remember, King Saul was going to kill his son because Jonathan, right, tasted that honey when Saul was like, no one eat a drop until evening. And remember, Jonathan went against him. He didn't know, but he was like, look, you see how the eyes are lit and the energy is renewed? So Jonathan could have really been bitter because after the victory, King Saul made David ruler of all the men of war. And we know Jonathan was a man of war. He was able to have victory with some of the small battles in the Philistines, 20 men here and there. And yeah, he was victorious. Well, in 1Sam.18, it opens up how, is that 17? No, 18. How Jonathan loved David like he loved himself. And Jonathan and David made a covenant, a partnership. And Jonathan gave gifts to David. Right now, we're talking about someone who is taking your role. So that's something for us. When you have been passed over that promotion, you should have perhaps gotten this. We got to do what Jonathan did. But the most important thing is that the love was in his heart. He wasn't phony about it. It was unfeigned love, F-E-I-G-N-E-D. It wasn't contrived, because it said that he loved him in his soul. Now, in verse 4, the gifts, we know he gave him garments, he gave him his sword, he gave him his bow and his girdle. So he looked out for him and Jonathan had brothers and sisters, but he treated him like that. So sometimes you can be closer to people who are not blood. Yes, he gave him his belt. And look, people were celebrating. But listen, something that really amazed me was David didn't get it. He didn't let all this go to his head as far as the accolades. People started dancing, singing. We know the women Saul, killed 1,000, but David killed 10,000. And then that's when Saul became very wroth. Because before, Saul was like, you know what? You don't go home anymore. You're in this palace now, from now on. Remember, like I said, he promoted him. He gave him a new home. Then as soon as Saul heard celebration, that's when that envy rose up. So Jonathan could have been jealous, and Saul, that insecurity came. But the reaction of David is priceless. And this is what I want to say. 3 times in this chapter, it talks about how David behaved himself wisely. That's in verse 5. And then in verse 14, it says again, but David behaved himself wisely in all his ways. With all that was going on, are we behaving wisely in the midst of maybe celebration or in the midst of people hating you? The way to behave yourself wisely is to be aligned with the Lord, to be connected. No matter if you're being promoted or demoted, if you're being terminated or if you're being hired and you're going through the onboard process. We don't know. But this is the bottom line. I never noticed this. David behaved himself wisely in verse 5, in verse 14, and in verse 30. It says, then the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass after they went forth that David behaved himself more wisely than all. It says himself more wisely this time. So when the heat is on, or when the gold is poured on you, when accolades are there, are you still remaining humble? Or are we getting caught up? And then that's when, the enemy really can take advantage. No, we want to behave ourselves so that the Lord will get the glory. In Psalms 135, we want to be able to praise the Lord at all times. Praise the Lord with our mouths, praise the Lord with our actions. We know in Psalms 101, David says, I will behave myself wisely in my household. I will behave myself when I go out. I will walk within my house. I will walk wherever the Lord places me with a perfect heart. So whether we're in the valleys, and that reminds me of the Torrin Wells song, I will praise you because God is the God of the hills and the valleys. You might find yourself in a valley situation today. Walk perfectly. Align yourself and praise the Lord for whatever is your situation, and He'll get the glory.